Hello everybody and welcome back. Tonight we're going to be taking a look at something I've been wanting to do for a while now on here. I have here a Game Boy DMG IPS display kit. And these are great because you can take an old Game Boy that has a faulty display and pop one of these in and basically bring it back to life and make it good as new, but with a backlit IPS display that gives you plenty of options. We're going to go over that as we go through this video. This is going to be the install video that I'm kind of sectioning off into little parts. And I got this off eBay from the same seller. I've done this once before. And this is the seller I got it from. They're on eBay. I can leave a link below if anybody's interested, especially in the outcome of how this comes out and turns out. You may be interested. But doing one of these already in the past, a couple years ago, I was extremely satisfied with it. I think it's an awesome little kit. They retail for about $58 or so, buy it now. And then, you know, eBay adds their little, whatever, you get your sales tax, in other words. So it takes a couple weeks to get here. I ordered this a couple weeks ago, and sure enough, just as it said, it came exactly when I expected it to. So there's a bunch of different colors. First part of this video, I thought I would take a little look-see and open it together with you and show you what's involved. And it comes in two little compartments here. The easiest piece to open right now is this here. And this is the already cut pre-modified shell for your modded Game Boy. Now, you don't have to use this. You can use your existing Game Boy shell. This is the donor I'm using here for this kit. And the only thing is, this particular screen mod is not only backlit, it also has the added feature of being, I think they say 11% bigger than the original Game Boy's display. It may not sound like a lot, but once you get it in hand, I assure you, there is a little bit of a difference. It's kind of hard to tell here because it's got this glass on the front. So I'm going to reverse it, but I'm thinking maybe you could see the difference here if I put them side by side. Maybe not, I don't know. I think you can see it a little bit, right? You can see this is definitely smaller and this is a little bigger. So what's great about these IPS display kits is, I mean, you can buy the display itself. This is what this is here. I'll open that in a moment. But you can also buy the shell included with it or just separately. This comes separate, or you can buy as a bundle. And before I got the black one as a bundle. And from what I understand, they have all sorts of colors. I mean, they have white, they have orange, they have red, lime, you name it. I thought this blue was kind of cool and different. And in person, it looks a little different. On video here, I think it looks a little more purpley. But in person, this has definitely got more of a shade of like a darker, flatter looking blue to it. But I thought it was a pretty nice sheen. I thought it was pretty cool. And from what I understand, the translucent, like clear translucent cases here, sorry, I sound a little off. I've got some allergy issues. But the clear cases, because you can get like an atomic purple kind of looking color, essentially. But in these third-party shells, their quality for some reason just doesn't seem as nice as the more solid colors such as this blue, which is why last time I took a black, this time I'm taking this. It's a little different. I got a bunch of other, you know, boring DMG shells already for my other Game Boys. I'm wanting a little something different. So this shell comes with the, you know, little rubber pieces, the contact pieces for the inside of the buttons, for the board itself. It comes with the power button piece of plastic that makes contact. It comes with a D-pad, it comes with the A and B buttons, and it comes with the screws. And yeah, there's really not much to it. But what makes this one in particular different is this should be already pre-cut and ready to go out of the box for this display to just fit right in here. Because otherwise, if you take a DMG such as this, and I'm not sure if they pre-cut this. I hope they did. That's the whole intention of getting this shell, really. So if it's not cut, because it doesn't look like, they look like they match up. Now, like I said, I've only done this once before, so and it was a couple years ago, so my memory isn't quite super familiar. I'm going to be doing it essentially from scratch again. But some of these bits here we may have to trim. I'm going to have to wait and see as we get to that point. Because the one I did before, I swore this was missing. And the whole idea of doing this was, this kit is so that it's already pre-cut. Now this side's pre-cut because with this kit, you're maintaining your Game Boy DMG, your original Game Boy, motherboard. The main motherboard is what you're going to be keeping from the existing system that you're upgrading to. What you're changing out for this kit is in here. I'm going to show you in a second, but there is a brand new front motherboard, you know, that goes behind the buttons here and makes contact with all the keys in the front. Is essentially the second brain of the unit. Okay, and the display is going to go here, obviously, and there's a couple cables, but everything's going to kind of sandwich together behind this shell. But because that IPS display is a little bit different in terms of size and needing to fit in here, there are some alterations that need to be made. And you can cut your existing shell perfectly fine if you like, or you can get something already done. And I don't have a Dremel or anything. That's one tool I do not have access to. This piece over here, the contrast wheel, since there's no contrast obviously in IPS, it's going to be for changing the palettes and the brightness. You're going to be able to roll it up and down a little bit to change the brightness of the display. And then over here you have your typical volume. One thing they had to do on this is cut this a little bigger to make it for that to fit in there properly, because the existing cutout just isn't quite big enough. And you might be able to see that here, that this is a little smaller and this is a little bigger. Anyway, so that's pretty much the shell, I guess. There's really nothing exciting about it. You got a battery compartment here. You got your battery contacts already in there. The two in here are part of the motherboard. I think this is pretty solid. I was actually pretty impressed with the black one. I thought the tone of this was neat. It's just the way it clashes is pretty cool. It comes with black buttons, but I'm actually hoping, I got a whole mess of spare buttons and stuff, and I'm hoping to maybe put these maroon ones in here. And I think that might be a cool difference in terms of just going for boring black. So let's take a couple of these out of here, and we'll give a little preview of what this looks like maybe. Oops, let's try not to do that. That could be kind of cool, I think. We'll see. Because it keeps that nostalgic look of the buttons. And once again, for whatever reason, the lighting kind of messes with the colors. But these are the original maroon ones. And in person, they look a little bit, well, they look different in person than they do on the camera. But we're going to try that. It's easy enough to swap them out if it doesn't work out. But in contrast, I think I have a black one right here. This is how the black one's going to look. See, it's kind of boring. I don't know. I think the nostalgic look of the maroon buttons might fit a little better. So when we get to that point, we'll see what happens. We'll see what we think here. Because otherwise, I like to try to maintain and use the original pieces and parts when I can. The problem is, in these aftermarket shells, a lot of the original parts don't really line up as well, because the shells just tend to be a little thinner, and the dimensions and the sizes tend to be just a hair off enough that it can cause a little conflict. But I've never had any issues with the D-pad and the B and A and the select start stuff. I mean, these are just rubber anyway. So, all right, enough yammering about the shell. I think I covered all the bases for that. I am pretty happy with the way it's been shipped. So we're going to take this open and show you what's enclosed in this case here, because this is where the real meat and potatoes of this mod are, okay? And I did a pretty good job packing it up. This is a ribbon cable. Wait a minute, no. Is it that's not the ribbon cable. I think that's actually a piece of sticky paper. Okay, so this is this other board that I was talking about a moment ago. These are this is the front, this would be the front part of your normal DMG, but this is an altered version of it. This is because of the IPS display, and this is the wheel over here that adjusts the brightness, or you can click it in like that, and it allows you to change the palette, and you can customize your palette. Here's start and select, the B and A, up, down, left, right, and that's essentially the front of the Game Boy. And the motherboard, which I have in here, is going to attach to the back of this, and it's going to be able to interact and interface, and you're going to cram it all into the shell, and that should be pretty much all there is to it. Now this piece here is the guide for the screen. And oh, also there's an red LED right there for the existing hole that's going to go in there. But this is they include these little guides to help you put the screen on. I'm not sure if I remember how this goes. I think it's something like that. See, I don't have the directions, and it didn't include directions, but I'm not mistaken. Yeah. Well, I think there you go. That's the way it's supposed to go. I think it goes just like this. Just like that. And then the screen will go in there. Actually, this isn't right, because see that post up there, I think that post is supposed to have been removed or something. But anyway, we'll figure this out when we get to this point of putting it together. So anyway, that is, well, no, that's not it. What am I saying? All right, so we got here inside this is the rest of the pieces. This is a little daughter board that goes, let's see here, this is a little daughter board that is attached to this IPS display. This is the IPS display. This is a ribbon cable that we're going to use to attach this board to the motherboard of the Game Boy. And this is the IPS screen that we're going to be attaching to this. There's a little connection right there. This is going to go, this is here is going to go into there, and then this big one down here is going to go into here and then roll around the back to the Game Boy motherboard. So now one of the big things you should do before you do any of this is to double check and test this to make sure this lights up. Once again, when we get to that point, we'll be doing that. So yeah, these are all the pieces. I forget what I used this tape for. I don't even know if I used it last time. I think I'd prefer to just use my, I have some Kapton tape that I'll probably end up using. So this is this is the glass screen lens that came with the kit. And it was supposed to be like a purple color, but it doesn't really look purple to me. It looks too kind of gray. It's really weird, whatever. I don't think, it's not as purplish as I thought it was going to be. It looks almost very similar to the original DMG. But it was supposed to be a purple color to go along with this kit here. I mean, it's fine. It still looks right. The lines at the top here are definitely a different color. I don't know. It just looks a lot lighter than it did in the eBay auction. But it's all good. This is a glass screen lens though, and this one is custom made to be bigger to fit for this bigger display of the IPS screen, and that will be something else we will be taking a look at once again as we go through. But for now, that about wraps up what's involved in this kit. You got your IPS, you got your daughter board, motherboard. I consider this a daughter board. You got this ribbon cable, this screen placement thing. I don't even know if I used this on my old one or not. I can't remember offhand. I think I must have, because I think this, I know it's supposed to help you put this in the proper line, like to line it up properly, like it lays in there. Yeah. So anyway, that about covers that, and that's the intro to what this kit offers. Once again, it's offered by this group called Dido from China, of course, and same seller I bought the other kit from, and I was pleasantly surprised. So I think this one is going to be just as good. So moving on, let's move up to the next step in our installation process. So our first step before we do anything is, this is an existing Game Boy speaker I had from the various Game Boys I've had that I've taken apart, and just an extra one laying around. You can buy these with them already included and installed. For this kit though, in particular, I'm just going to use one of my existing speakers. And to do this, I have to solder it on real quick to these little spots right here on the board. So we have that all nice and fluxed. We're just going to go in there and quickly try to tap these on. Without hopefully pulling these off the speaker. There we go. And there we go. Being careful not to yank these wires off, because once this gets in the case, these are going to kind of hang like this. And this is the front of the speaker. All done. All right, so for our next step, we're going to be putting in the IPS display itself. But before we do that, I wanted to show, I took a little pair of my hobby snips here, and I did end up removing these two posts. So we should have a more flush clearance here with this frame that you need to put in to line up the screen. And essentially how this works is, this is going to go in just like this. It's going to lay right over top, just like that. But then this IPS is going to mount on this side here. So what we're going to do is, first of all, we're going to have to pull off this little sticker before we do any of the major installation. But now this comes off here. This little piece will come off. This is attaching this display to this board. I'm just going to leave it be. I really don't want to mess around with it. The more you mess around, the more chances there are of the little prongs and everything just getting bent. This is very sensitive stuff. I just assume leave it alone, not mess with it. But what we're going to have to do is, we have to mount this on the outside of this plastic frame. So we're just kind of flip that right on top. This piece is going to go over top here. I mean, you can remove that if you like, but I'm not feeling it. You can see there's a little bit of an opening there to give the little ribbon cable some space. And now with this on here, I'm going to lay this down here. And I'm going to get a piece of this Kapton tape. I think that's what that, I don't know where I put it now, but there was a little strip of tape that came with this that you could use, but I'll just use some of this here. I like to use this when I have the chance. Just going to pull off a little piece. And I'm just going to use my snips to cut it right in here. Like so. I'm going to fold this over top of itself. And I'm going to stick it right on the board here. And lay that down like that. So there you go. That way it won't kind of flop around too much while we're putting this in. And it's nice and flat against this piece here. See that? Okay, so first things first, I'm going to take off this piece here. I'm going to try not to touch the screen as much as I can. This makes me nuts because I don't really, rather not take this off just yet. Okay, and I'm going to try holding it down there, and we're going to lay this on top of this here. We're going to line this up. I wish I didn't have to take that piece off yet. But if I don't, it's going to be blocked. There you go. There. So that keeps it from getting all, uneven from the front. There is a cool little trick you can do though with this display that I will show you once we get it all together. Just going to push this down, and there, that'll keep it nice and neat. And actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay it on here, I think. There you go. That way we don't get any scratches on that screen. I don't want any dust on there either while we're at it. So that piece is done. Now, before we move on to anything crazy, we're gonna have to put the buttons in here. So I think I'm just gonna use the included stuff here. Let me see. Like I said, I like to try to use the original parts where I can. But this bag is so full of random stuff at this point that I may just use the ones that came with the kit. And see how they work out. Because honestly at this point, I'm not sure which of these are the originals. I think this is an original maybe. You can tell because it's a little grody. I've got so many of these things in here now, I can't tell which is which. I'll just use the pieces that came with the kit for now. They look fairly close to the originals for the most part, I think. This is pretty straightforward stuff now. These are for the A and B. This is for the D-pad. And for the D-pad, I'm going to try to use, I should have an original D-pad in here, and I'm going to attempt to use one of those. I guess I should prepared this a little better. This, I believe, is an original D-pad, if I'm not mistaken. And as I said at the beginning of the video, I'm going to use these original DMG buttons. They're in decent shape. They're not brand new looking, but they're not bad. Now, if I remember correctly, maybe not. I guess they just go in. I seem to remember these had a certain orientation you had to do it. And where's the post for this here? Gotta go this way. Okay. And we got the D-pad here. And this goes just like this here. Okay, so the tricky part is putting on this backboard and flipping everything around, and the motherboard and all that. So we're going to lay this down here first. We're going to put the speaker in this little hole slot here, socket. The only thing is we got to get this around. If you can see, there's a little notch over here that the wires have to go through. And this is what I was saying earlier. I got to make sure these wires don't get yanked too much. There you go. So this piece is just going to lay on top of here, just like this. We're just going to kind of put the speaker wire down there like that for now. And now this one up here, this little guy is going to socket right in here into this. I think that's flipped up already. I remember this being a bugger last time I did this. There you go. That snips down on top of that. Okay. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to now screw in these 5 screws here. And real quick, I separated them off screen so we wouldn't have any trouble wasting time. So we're going to put the 4 Phillips heads in here. I like to be careful with these because these Chinese shells, they aren't quite as durable as the original Nintendo ones, you know. So I don't want to over tighten anything too much, especially if I have to open it again at a later date. So as soon as I feel any kind of tightening and resistance, I tend to stop. And then one more down there. These are the screwdrivers that come with the kit. I think a lot of people don't really like them too much, but I don't know. I don't have a problem with them. I've got quite a collection of them at this point too. I mean, I have my iFixit toolkit, but here, let me just use this. Seem like they're okay. I wonder if they're a little too big. Now, they worked fine on my other kit. I just don't want them to be too... Well, we'll check it out for now and see what happens. We may have to change it out, unfortunately, to the black ones. I used them in my other kit, but unfortunately these might be too thick to use here. Yeah, this one's getting stuck, so we're going to have to readjust some stuff. This is why I don't like to tighten these all the way down. So let me just go and swap that real quick. All right, so the black buttons are now in, and verdict is out. We'll test it out when we get together. I think I kind of like them though, now that I'm looking at them. They're kind of the charcoal color. All right, so the next step is we have the Game Boy donor board. Okay, this is the main motherboard from a Game Boy I have that does not have a screen. I'm not 100% sure if this is working. I'm probably about 80% sure it's working because I didn't have a screen attached to it. However, I did stick in some headphones into this port, and I popped a cartridge in here with some batteries in, and I get the Nintendo logo ding, and I also get the sounds from the game that I put the cartridge for in. So this is going to come out of here. We're just going to plop this out and put the remainder of that over there. And it's in pretty clean condition overall. Doesn't look too bad. I think, let's see, that should be okay. Still sounds like it's still moving pretty well. All right. So this now is going to go into the third-party shell that we got with this kit. And it's just going to lay in here like so. Should. That's the key word. And there we go. The only thing we have to do now is we have to screw this down. Looks like everything's matching up pretty well. Okay, we got the battery port here. Looks like everything's accounted for. And so I'm going to move this just like that a little bit. And I'm going to lay this like this. And we're going to screw this down now. I've been trying to sit here and figure out these screws because I'm hoping I'm not missing something, but offhand, we should have to just put in a screw here, a screw here, a screw here, and a screw here. It should be 4 total if I'm remembering correctly. But that's going to leave us an extra 4 left. And I don't know if they're just extras or not, but we're going to screw this piece down here first. And let's say here. Okay. And I think I'm going to screw in this, one of the screws for the headphone jack as well. I want to make sure that's lined up there. And we're going to screw that one in here. This is the only problem with these screwdrivers. They're not exactly very, they don't give you a lot to work with here. So I'm going to shove this in here. That one's in there pretty decently. All right, so I did a quick swap out. I'm going to use my iFixit screwdriver because I just need a little more torque than these cheap little screwdrivers are providing here. And I got to make sure that I don't over crank these screws because they are this is not the best shell. I mean, in terms of construction. As I said, these Chinese shells are a little cheaper and softer, so to speak. There. That looks pretty decent. Looks like it's on there. All right. And we're going to put one more over here. There you go. So that's in there. One thing I had to remember to do though is, I hope I still do it. I always do this when I'm messing around with Game Boys. I always forget to put this power switch in here. And I hope I can put it in still. There you go. There. It's in there. Okay. All right, so this is really the last part here, technically. All we have to do is get this, just have to put these two halves together. But the trick is we have to also put this piece in as well. And if I remember correctly, this was a real bugger to get in and sandwich together before when I did this. So that's in there, okay? But now I have to get the two halves together while also pushing it together, so to speak. So this is the part that I found to be the most difficult. It doesn't look like it should be too hard, but it's not easy. And I know the camera angle isn't very good here, unfortunately. I'm always trying to be a little over careful when I do these things. But it's also very stiff and cumbersome, I think, to get in here. So instead of wasting up a bunch of time, I'm going to pause it and we'll have it in and we'll resume in a moment. All right, so the cable is in, the ribbon cable is in. It's a lot tougher than it looks to try to get it in there and try to be careful. Now once that's in, we can finally just kind of shut this thing all around the edges here and seal it up, okay? Make sure it's all kind of lined up. I think the bulge of that ribbon cable is what messes with it. That looks pretty decent right there though. So I'm going to try holding this down while I go around and put these screws in. So for this we're going to use, let's see, I'm going to try to see if my iFixit kit will slot these screws properly. I'm not sure if it will. I'm going to give it a shot because I really don't like to use those if I don't have. I mean, sometimes they're okay, sometimes they're not. But these are also, for the outside of the shell that we're going to be doing here, these are tri-wing screws. I'm trying to make sure that that is going in. Let's try one of these. Again, I really don't want to do this too tight, but at the same time, because you never know if you have to get back in there to do any kind of fixing up of things, so to speak. This is a tri-wing, this is a tri-wing. So unfortunately some technical issues occurred during recording and I'm trying to resume where we left off. Luckily we didn't miss much. In this case where we left off is we were putting this shell together and screwing everything together. And we also, the big thing is we did put the lens on, the glass lens that is included with the IPS kit, specifically for this screen on sense. So we kind of missed that ASMR moment of peeling off the plastic, but in any case, we are complete with the mod now. Everything is done. Everything is closed up and sealed. I think the only thing I want to mention before I continue is if you are doing this, there is some, I've had this happen in my prior mod that I did, the same mod. This is the brightness wheel, and it also allows you to open up the options menu on the new display. And unfortunately, I've noticed that if you over torque these, especially these two right here, it will make this kind of unmovable and useless because it's really pushing on this. So You can kind of find a happy medium. What I usually do is I tighten these as much as I care to, and I try feeling this here to see if it moves. If it's still stiff, I just slightly loosen these screws just to the point of where this is free moving. It's not as super as smooth as this here. This is the volume button over here. It's a little more crunchy feeling. It's a kind of a bizarre feeling until you actually get it in hand. That said, you don't really need to mess with this too much. So that's the good thing. Once you set it all up, you can kind of put it aside unless you really want to change the brightness. So anyway, we have the lens on, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to finish this video out by just showing you the features that are part of this IPS display and some of its options and what you can do with it, besides the fact that it's a backlit display. Let's see here. So I'm using a old Chinese pirate cartridge I got from a buddy. Actually, it was Shane over at Monroe World. I got this years ago when we had our little meet and greet out in Arizona back in, I think it was like 2009 or so. He just knew I was a Game Boy fan and kind of gave it to me, which is great. I actually really like this cartridge. I think it's really neat for testing things out. And when I don't want to mess around I have my massive Game Boy loose cartridge collection. It's actually got a lot of big hits on here that I love. Some of the obscure niche titles, not like Mario and the main ones, but a lot of oddballs that I really enjoy. So I like to bring that out to test things with. If it comes down to it, I also have my copy of tennis here, but I figure we could flip through different games. So I have batteries in here. Everything seems to be working pretty well from what I can tell. One other thing is I had one of these extra serial number sticker labels left over, so I threw that on. The one thing I want to do is get one of those 1-800 number stickers to put back here. Some people could care less. I think it's kind of cool though. It just makes it look more authentic. So I'm really happy with this blue color. I did go, I don't remember if I was able to catch the footage or not offhand, but I did end up using an original Game Boy D-pad here. I did use the included shell knockoff buttons. They seem to be working pretty well. These are also just the shell included knockoff rubbers here. This is the official D-pad, and I also ended up using the underlying rubber contact from an official Game Boy as well. All right, without further ado, we're going to go through and show some of the features off. I'm going to flip this on. And there you have it. A nice, clean IPS display. And I did do some tweaking beforehand because I wanted to get this all set up to show off to a point. For one thing, I did include I don't know if you're gonna be able to see it, I did turn on there was a retro pixel mode, as you can see, that kind of isolates the authentic feel of the individual pixels from a Game Boy. So this is just a list of the games on this cartridge, multi-cart. Pokemon stuff, Pokemon, I should say. They don't really work too well because they don't save. But there's a lot of good hits on here. So as I said earlier, you got a wheel over here. This is the part that is included with, this is the front motherboard piece that this IPS works off of, and the contacts and everything. So rolling it down, you can see the screen's getting a little dim there. Rolling it up, it gets bright. And it gets pretty decently bright. It's got a nice brightness. It probably should work pretty well outside even. I like to keep it fairly low though. It doesn't really need a lot of brightness to see in general, especially if you're indoors. In bed, this is perfect. Just to drop it all the way down like this. So by clicking this in, you can now cycle through different palettes. There's an original Game Boy palette. Now the first couple here that I'm showing off, including that one that I just flipped to, That was that is what's considered a Game Boy Pocket palette, and that is a custom one that I put on here, and this is another custom one I put on. It doesn't come with these built in. There is default palettes, but I find most of them to be pretty garish and ugly. And this is an original DMG green, pea soup green. This is like a just a black and white. This here is the Game Boy Light. There's two different versions of it. There's a lighter light and a dark. Unfortunately, they're not really coming through as great as they probably could on the camera. They look a little better up close. I'm going to try to brighten this up a little bit to better. That's pretty much how it looks in person, right about there when you raise the brightness up. And then you got this, which is version 2. You can see there's a little bit of darkness there, a little darker gradient. And the rest of these are the built-in ones. You got this is like a purple. It's a little hard to see on the camera, unfortunately. Some stuff just doesn't work out too well, but this is much more purple color. That's an even darker shade of purple. This is another shade of purple, almost like a pinkish purple. And then we're back to you cycle them through. There's my Pocket palette. And originally this was like a yellow, and then there was a red. They're just not very friendly on the eyes. Okay, cycle through. All right, so to change all these and to get into the options, what you can do is you can push and hold this in, and you'll get this little menu here. This just allows you to manually change the brightness and to cycle down, up and down, down and up. You just wheel this. And when you want to select something, you can select it there. You click it in and it allows you to adjust. So if I click this, I have it on max brightness right now. See, I can lower it down. And you don't have to obviously be in the menu to do this. As we just showed, you can just wheel at any time. And you hit it again to back out. Now what's neat is when you first put this display in, and it seems like it's a little off center, luckily this kit allows you to go in and adjust the vertical, and at times after a few moments if you don't do anything. Like for instance here we got the vertical. Okay, we're pretty much dead center right there at the moment, but you can go in and you can flip it, and you see the black border at the top. Yeah. So if you don't have this exactly lined up, you can go in and manually adjust it after the fact. It's a nice little safety net, so to speak. But I would recommend at least getting the screen itself centered properly. In other words, try to keep an even amount of bezel around the circumference of the screen, because that's not going to allow you to essentially change a screen that's kind of shifted a little bit. Like you may have like a little slope around one of the borders. So if we scroll down, you got horizontal, and then you have this pixel effect here. You can turn this on and off. I happen to kind of like it. So there it's off. And then it's on. Off. On. I think it's pretty cool. It really helps things. Just gives it that further authenticity. And you have a battery display that you can turn on and off. Although I have never really gotten it to work, because as you can see there's no battery listed there on the top of the screen, so I just leave it off. Besides, if you're having a low battery, you have your LED light over here, your bulb, not even an LED, it's just a red bulb that will change up when the system's getting low. And most importantly, you have color adjust. And this is where you can match up your palettes. And for each of these individual palettes, you're going to see a color 0 to 3. And in each of these, you can adjust their whoops. No, we don't want to reset. There you go. There you go. You can adjust the red, green, and blue for each of these palettes. And it takes you through each of these. And so you can adjust the variables of each shade, in other words. So this is the one I have set up for, actually I think this is the basic black and white. Yeah. So we want to get out of here. And the back out, you just have to hold this in. Takes you back. Now at one point, I don't think this isn't necessarily black and white. Let me start a game. I'll show you the color that this actually is. What's something I could put on here? Well, here, I'll do one of my favorites is Solomon's Club. So you can get an idea of what these palettes look like. So as you can see, that's almost like, it's almost like a Game Boy Advance SP or a Game Boy Advance palette in a way. If you remember on a Game Boy Advance, whenever you put a black and white Game Boy in, it would kind of, even the Game Boy Color would do it, but more especially the Game Boy Advance would kind of automatically pick a palette for you just to mix it up a little bit. So as you can see, this display is a big difference over the default DMG black and white, and just a huge upgrade. So let's get this going here. And I'm gonna flip through the shades again here. I think what I'm gonna do is, I really like the title screen for this Japanese version of Solomon's Club. The Western version just has the title of the game. It doesn't have this cool artwork of the main character, whose name escapes me at the moment, because funny enough, I did know it at one point. But here, let's go through some of the shades here. There's that Game Boy light looking color. There's the darker version. There's these purple hues. There's the pocket. I really like the pocket. I think it looks pretty decent. And then there's pea soup, which looks really good too. By the way, this is a really good Game Boy game. It's a great port, and one of my favorites on the system. I actually owned the Japanese and the American versions, both cartridges, and was pretty happy to find it sitting on this pirate bootleg cartridge. I thought that was pretty cool. Unfortunately, to get to a different game, we have to pull that cartridge out and put it back in. So for the most part, I think I'm just going to play a couple of games here, and because there's not much else to say. I think we've covered all the bases. The kit does include a cover for the shell. If you get the shell, it does include a cover for the expansion port there, the link for the link cable. Here's Tailgator. Although this is messed up because you have to hit Boulder Dash to get Tailgator. They messed up the names on the list. And it's a Natsume game. And Natsume makes some really good games overall. And this is just a fun and kind of expensive cartridge for the Game Boy. You jump, you whip your tail, and you have to find and collect all the keys to get out of the areas. Some really neat music. Great little platforming puzzle thing. So you gotta whip open these chests. And you gotta look for the keys to advance. This is why I don't do a lot of streaming of games, to be honest with you, because I can't talk and play at the same time. So there's a key there, it opens the door. So you just kind of hop up there and you head up to the next room. I think that's a power up. Let's see what else we can play on here. I'll do one more game. Here you go. Here's a very cool port of Mr. Do to the Game Boy. Mr. Do was a arcade game by a company called Universal back in the early 80s. And this is actually a pretty cool little port of the arcade game. It's a little different, but it plays the same. You have to collect these cherries. I don't believe this received a an American release, let's put it that way. As far as I know, I think it might have been UK only. Not positive on that, but it's certainly a game I'd like to add to my collection. But unfortunately, it's not a cheap one either, and it's just not something I can easily get access to. I mean, I have never seen it at a store to even purchase or have the option to. But I think this is actually the first place I discovered it on this cartridge. So, if anything, even though this is a pirate cartridge, it's just making me find new things I want to buy and add to the collection. This is a very cool game. Really maintains the feel of the original arcade while also trying to do something a little different. Just has a nice flow to it. So, anyway. Anyway, that's about it for this video, and sorry for some of the technical issues, and hopefully somebody gets something out of it, if anything, just to show off the quality of the kit and the screen itself. And if you have a like a motherboard or a Game Boy with a busted screen, a DMG with a screen with a bunch of lines, you can just take it apart, remove that front motherboard piece, and take off the speaker, buy one of these kits, put the speaker on, and what I showed you in the video, it really breathes. It's great to breathe new life into something that may have no use at the moment. Like I said, this Game Boy motherboard I had in here, I've had sitting around in a plastic tin, or one of those like a tote, I guess you could say, a little plastic tote under my bed with a bunch of Game Boy parts that I've salvaged over the years. And the motherboard was just sitting in there doing nothing. And I had done one of these kits before, and I figured, you know what, let me see what I can do with it. And just by making that $60 purchase of the kit, I've added another Game Boy system to my library, my collection, so to speak. So anyway, highly recommend it. I can leave a note to a link and information downstairs in the comments or and the description below. So if anybody has any questions about this, feel free to leave a question, or thanks a lot. And once again, like and subscribe. I'm always trying to get some new viewers here, and I appreciate you watching, and thanks for joining me this evening. Take care. Have a good night.